and having.
Sorry, I realized I need to be recording this.
Okay, no problem. But at any rate, we had a lot of, as I said, deconstructing to do before we can reconstruct. There had been some significant damage to the building with the infestation of racoons in the attic of the building, the parsonage. They had done significant damage and had left significant waste behind. There was a very strong odor in the building, that in the house, that needed to be taken care of. And as we went further and further into it and started removing things, we realized that the majority of that was coming from the fact that raccoons had been living there for a significant amount of time. So all of the insulation was removed, a lot of the drywall had to be removed from the ceiling area, and all of that area painted with Kills type of paint that would seal any issues. And so there was a great deal of that type of work that had to happen in the thing, as well as I think many of you may have been there during some of the demo work for that project. But we made our way through that with a great deal of help from a great number of volunteers, with, as I said, Joe Reed, who has done a great job for us, along with, of course, Sarah and Tom have been there on many occasions. Thomas, thank you for your help with all of that, and Matthew and I appreciate the support that everyone has provided. We're anxious for Tom and Sarah to find their new home there at Post Oak. As I'd mentioned, it is quite a undertaking. I'm not fully confident on the budget yet, and I apologize for that. I think it's kind of a moving target, but I believe that we're probably in that $100,000 to $125,000 range. I think as we get further into it and we get the rest of the numbers on some of the parts of this that are still underway, we'll know more. But we have basically taking things down to the drywall, and in some areas down to the studs, quite honestly, to get rid of some of the damage that was there before. We have new windows on order, but they won't be in place until after Tom and Sarah and the boys are able to move in because of supply chain issues that we all have. Sorry, click some of these things off. As Tom mentioned earlier, the goal is to have he and his family there right before Thanksgiving. At this particular moment, I think that's still possible. We met on site on Monday evening and progress is happening. The kitchen, which was removed, is being replaced now. The cabinets are in place. They were out measuring for countertops today. Appliances are being delivered the Wednesday that Tom and Sarah are planning on moving in. So hopefully that'll be a coordinated effort. It is basically, it's turned into almost like a new building from the interior standpoint. I think Tom, I'm not sure if there's other area you or Thomas think that we should cover on this. We invite everyone to come and see the property. Thank you. There's the new kitchen. It's even a little bit further than I saw. So it looks like they were ready for templates. You know, the idea here, and Tom and Sarah have made it very clear to Matthew and I, as we were helping, that this is a place that they want everyone to feel welcome and make it an enjoyable space for everyone. And that was really our goal in doing this. We have opened up a little bit of the kitchen. It's not a large home, and so to make it a comfortable place for the family, it's important that we opened it up as much as possible. For those of you who have been there before, you'll see that between the kitchen and the living room has been opened up significantly. such that there can be better flow between the two rooms and make it comfortable for not only the family, but for the visitors that will be there at the parsonage. So that was our goal, was to make it a welcoming place, a place for Tom, Sarah, and the boys to enjoy, but also for those of us to visit as well. So
only thing I would add is the roof as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Replaced the roof that was not doing well, had some leaks, and then also the patio on the back. There's now a patio that stretches from the entire back part of the house to be able to have a great space for having church and just getting gatherings and getting to know each other. So that's a great addition outside as well. Can't hear you, Shelley, if you're talking.
Any Mark or Thomas, anything else you want to add about that, or? Okay. All right. Thank Mark and Matthew. Thank you so much again for your leadership on that. If you have questions, hang on to them. We'll eventually get to that. But I really appreciated all the work that you two have been doing personally. Let's go on. Thomas, you want to talk about the Asbury and Eastwood remodel?
Yep, I'm doing a screen share. See if that comes through properly. Shows the remodel. This is the plan of the first floor. You can see it okay. So we've been working with Studio Intrigue, and they did a construction drawings. This is just the lighting diagram, which makes it kind of easy to see where the lights are. It's probably the easiest one to digest for what's going where. But we received the bid today, so Chuck will be talking about the numbers of how that's going. We've also experienced, when we turned the heat on a couple weeks ago, that there was some heating challenges in the building. So we were working with a boiler company that we've worked with, or a mechanical company we work with at S Lansing, and they've been integral in identifying potential ways to fix this. So what we're seeing here is the drawings have been out before. Just wanted to bring it up for discussion purposes, but the bid we got was for the entire remodel. If we decide that we may need to phase it, we could go back to the contractor and say that we want to have figures based on certain parts of the building. We have I guess the biggest challenge is probably the heat that's separate from the remodel, but we have got the permit from the City of Lansing, so these were submitted to City of Lansing. We were out ready for the permit. So as soon as we pick a contractor, they'll be able to issue the permit for us, and we'll be able to move forward as soon as we decide to go forward. The plan is on the lower level is not to do. There is the drinking fountain will be downstairs. So there's a drinking fountain like as you come in the entry in the lower level. That's the only thing really being changed on the lower level is to provide drinking fountain. But we are planning to do paint on the lower level to match the design that's in the upper level to give it a consistent flow throughout the building. Other than specific questions you've got maybe for what's happening, but that's kind of the update where we're at. Unless you have additional things that we talk about, Tom?
Are you not presenting what the bids were at this point? Is that something Tom, or is Chuck doing that?
I can. I don't know if Chuck, if you wanted to hold that off until Chuck talks about it, but I can talk about that as well.
No, I think you can go ahead and talk about the costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the bid came in at $436,000 for the remodel of the entire upper level. That does include a good portion for heating changes because there's radiators and things that need to move because walls are being removed. There are other costs for audio and stage lighting and for furnishings for the cafe, those sorts of things. Lighting in the parking lot. There's the parking lot lights aren't working, so we want to replace those and get those upgraded as well as the parking lot itself. We did not get an investment, a replacement on the replacement of the parking lot. That most of it is though the upper parking lot's in reasonable condition, the street down is reasonable condition. The lower level, we didn't want to do any additional work to that other than sealing a portion of it for now, because later we might be doing a more substantial work on the parking lot and don't want to invest too much money. And we're going to just be taking that out potentially as part of a later design. So those are additional costs that we'd be incurring as well.
So-
Chuck's got the full figures at the end. So
Would you talk, Thomas, a little bit about the bidding process and what?
oh, thank you. Yeah. So we had Chris, the Studio Intrigue, had identified 3 different contractors that we would potentially work with. We met with all of them at the building to give them time to question and have subcontractors bid. One of the firms is very large and has done work actually at South Lansing before as a part of a sub for the original contractor we had there. And 2 of the other ones were smaller contracting companies, but we were Chris was working with them before and thought that they'd be a good people to incorporate as well. Those smaller firms were unable to acquire enough subs to be able to do all the work. That things now are breaking loose and people are having things done. And so a lot of the subs are unavailable. But this larger firm that we did receive the bid from, they're large enough, and they're actually doing the remodel at the Humane Society. It's RC contractors. They're doing Humane Society, and they've also done the remodels at the church downtown in Old Town. It's also up in Holt, but they've done remodels at multiple churches before, so they've got some experience. So they were able to commit with subcontractors to be able to do all the work. Chris Chris is working with some additional contractors that he hadn't really thought of before, but reached out to them and they were very interested. And he's contacted them one day, and they've been out. 2 of them already been out to the building to do walkthroughs with Chris, and expect to be submitting bids within 2 weeks, or at least by December 1st, so that we wouldn't just have the one bid. We would want to have a competing bids as well, just to make sure that we're getting the prices are competitive within the market. So we will be expecting additional bids as well.
But right now, we only have the one bid.
Right now, we only have the one bid, so there's nothing to really compare that to, because the other ones dropped out. They just couldn't commit with the subcontractors that they had.
I think it's worth also saying that we did recruit 2 contractors that were Black-owned businesses that neither of them ended up submitting bids. But that is part of what we try to do, is to have a diverse set of companies that we're working with. I think one thing, Thomas, maybe that's worth mentioning, just is more like kind of from the vision perspective, is that what we are trying to do with this sanctuary is to remodel it more into a community theater space. Many of you who've been around Sycamore Creek for a while know about Peppermint Creek Theater, and Chad, who attends our church, is partner with our church, he and his husband, Matt. And they don't have a home at this point, but they're not unique. There's about 5 or 6 community theater groups that don't have a home, and there really isn't a theater space. The only theater space that's this size is the Riverwalk Theater, but that doesn't provide enough space for everybody. So we are remodeling this with the community theater community in mind, and that's the direction that this has headed, to make it an asset to the community.
I met with Chad several times at Asbury to talk about the space and how best to use it from a theatrical perspective. He connected me with a lighting designer that he worked with through multiple theater places, and they gave some input as well. And we're talking with the audio engineer who Chad works with a bunch of the theater places as well, to give us some input on audio enhancements to make it. One thing Chad said, if you want to have the theater be to use the space, it's best to include them as a part of input in the beginning, so that they feel that they've got some input. So when they come in, like, yes, this is something we're a part of or had input into. And so they're all very appreciative to be invited and given really great input as a part of the design. One thing that is not included in here, which I wanted to mention, that as a part of theater, having a place to be able to get off stage, to be able to have an alternate place for makeup and costumes and that sort of thing. The backstage is very small, as you can see from behind the stage. So one of the things that Jed had mentioned that is pretty important to be able to have is that additional space. So one of the ideas we're milling and going to get a quote on from the contractor once that's been selected is a potential staircase in the back of the storage area that would lead to the basement. So that last basement segment that's the north side of the building could potentially be accessible through steps through the back part of the stage. That is not included in this particular budget. We would get that costed out separately and present that ideally before the church vote, but we're working towards getting that as well.
So the stage is a little bit added on to, so that we could close the curtain, a set could be built behind it, and then Sunday morning could be done without the set being seen.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can move on to Chuck here.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. So just kind of recap a little bit on the monies. You heard the parsonage we're looking at, as Mark said, anywhere from 100 to 125,000. Asbury, the one quote that we received so far, as Thomas said, was about 436,000. There's some other things that need to be done, sealing the flat roof, some, as Thomas mentioned, some heating things to get the heat working in some areas and to be able to slow it down in other areas rather than open up the windows when it gets to 85 degrees in there. So we've always worked with the Michigan Area Loan Fund, which is part of the United Methodist Foundation. Our current mortgage in South Lansing is with Michigan Area Loan Fund, or MALF, MALF. We owe about $80,000 on the current South Lansing building. So we've been talking to them and over the last few months. And then, in fact, their senior director of loan services, Karen Thompson, came out and visited with us this week, toured the Eastwood Campus building, looked at all the designs and drawings, and we kind of walked her through everything to give her a sense of what our ideas and plans were. And I think she left that meeting feeling good about what we were doing, excited about what we were going to bring to the East Lansing, Eastwood community. So when it's all said and done, our current application that we have submitted to the Michigan Area Loan Fund is for $732,000 loan. That would be roughly $650,000 for the parsonage and Eastwood Campus costs, and then the balance of the South Lansing building loan of around 80,000, give or take. That interest rate currently on the loan, which I think might come as a surprise to everyone due to the massive increase in interest rates, but they are still willing to give us an interest rate of 4.85%, which is significantly below any commercial loan you'd be able to receive from any bank in the area. Though we do have to move fairly quickly. So after our charge conference on the 28th. And a vote, we will immediately try to close that before the interest rate does go up. Monthly payment wise, we're currently paying $2,000 a month for our mortgage on South Lansing balance. The new monthly rate would be approximately $4,800 a month, which is a $2,800 increase. We do have significant monies and savings. I think when we, I'm happy to go through that in detail. But the Asbury, Legacy Asbury does have an endowment. They also had savings. As you know, we've been accumulating savings in our building fund, et cetera. So technically, the money's there to cover a portion of what we want to do. But all of our investments, like I think everyone else knows, is down because the market's down. And cashing out those investments today, I don't think is fiscally the smartest thing to do. And at 4.85%, I think it makes sense to borrow the money and then use gained interest in our investments when the market recovers to offset that additional increase in monthly payment. Early on, we may have to dip into some of it on the principal side, but I think in the longer run of this mortgage, the interest alone will on our investments will cover that increase in cost, monthly payment costs. So again, I think Missionary Loan Fund is comfortable and like what they saw. Karen liked what she saw. She's excited about our investment in the community, willing to give us the loan. And then that would consolidate both South Lansing and the remodel into one brand new loan. Like I said, at 4.85%. So does that make sense to everyone, or any questions? Happy to discuss.
Chuck, I want to
further if I
clarify.
missed anything.
I want to clarify one thing, Chuck. You were referring to the mortgage on the South Lansing campus. That's actually technically the mortgage between the remodel and South Lansing and Potterville all together, because the last time that we wrapped it all in, it was all one mortgage with the South Lansing building as the what's that word? The guarantee, the
Collateral.
collateral. Thank you.
Collateral.
Yeah. So between remodeling two buildings over several years, there's about 80,000 left. What I want to do is give you all a chance to talk about what questions you have, and I'm going to put us in breakout rooms here first. To do that, let's see. These are just randomly generated. So
Looks like Marilyn has a question.
Before you break us up into the different rooms, can you give me a total of the number of members that we have between all the different churches or campuses?
boy, that's a good question, Marilyn. I don't have an exact answer to that. And we're partly with Asbury right now, we're doing a commitment drive and asking for people's what they're going to be doing as far as their commitment. So it's a little easier to maybe describe how many are attending regularly, at least in person at this point. And South Lansing has anywhere from 60 to 80 in person and another 10 to 20 online. And Mark, what would,
Very similar to that, probably about 70 to 80 in person and maybe 10-ish online.
all right, I'm gonna open these rooms. Give you just about 7 minutes to chat. And then we'll come back and do a kind of larger discussion. Here we go.
Off.
Right.
We just let it bring us back.
All right, well, Miranda has taken off into space. Glad you're able to join us. So you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question, or you're welcome to type it in the chat. Or if you have just comment you want to make, that's fine too.
Let's see. I'd like Thomas Oates to tell me if he's checked whether his permits from the city of Lansing or are they from the township?
They're from the city of Lansing.
So
I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. I did not file the permits myself. The architect worked with the zoning the organization that's over that space, whether it's the township or the city. I don't work, I did not submit the bids myself, but they were, whoever zoned that particularly, I'm not sure if it's the township or the city, he got the call I got was from that zoning commission. It said it was approved.
okay, because I thought that the church was in the township.
I'll go,
Judy would know that if she's still here.
yep, Judy's there.
I'm still here. The church building is in the township. I don't know if the parsonage is.
Parsonage is in the city of Lansing.
Okay.
Okay, so you got two different ones.
It must have been, I got a call from, I'm sorry, I don't, the architect was the one, which is part of their service. They're the ones that filed the permits and had the communication. So they would have filed it with the right organization. And I did get a call that said, yes, we were approved. So I would imagine they would have not approved it if it wasn't within a particular
Right.
restriction of approval range. So
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry, I can't speak to that directly. It's one of those
Thomas,
things.
I
that
expect you
be
to
able
answer all the questions.
Our architect is amazing, by the way, just a pleasure to work with and really helpful, cooperative, great ideas.
They're a local architect in Rio Town, and so they're well aware of like the local everything local.
Tom, if I may, I just think something that we talked about during in the breakout group that I thought from a financial standpoint is important. And I asked Chuck this, because I was very pleased to hear the rate of 4.85 and whatever we need to do to make sure that we can close on that rapidly. I think it's important so we don't lose that. But for many of you who have been there longer than I have, you probably know this already, but it's a fixed rate and it's a 5-year term with a 20-year amortization, which is a terrific rate. I think we're very fortunate to have found that in the current rate environment. So I think that's terrific.
I remember when I bought my house in Petoskey and it was like 4.7, and we thought that was an awesome rate. That was
I
back
did
at
ask Chuck if they would do home loans, and he said no. So for those of you thinking the same thing, the answer was no. Matthew, the answer was no.
We did have a question about the Holt / South Lansing parsonage come up, and I wonder, Tom, if you could, or somebody.
yeah.
I kind of answered it, but like, you know.
We didn't we haven't communicated super well about that. The plan is to keep this parsonage in the same way that we've kept the Potterville parsonage. But Mark doesn't live in the Potterville parsonage, and Mikkel's family is not living in this parsonage. We did offer that to Mikkel to consider when she was exploring coming to Sycamore Creek, and we were greatly pleased that while the house is beautiful and amazing and everything, she really wanted to live in the neighborhood that the church is trying to reach. So what we're going to do is, in the same way we have a property management company that manages our Potterville campus or our Potterville parsonage, we're going to hand that off to this property management company. They will rent it. They'll find the people. If somebody needs to be evicted, they evict them. If there's maintenance, they have a full-time maintenance person that works on that, takes care of it. Really, it's really like a hands-off experience. And we just get the check in the mail every month. Now, the intent then is, right now we are renting, we've given Mikkel a housing allowance for her to live where she's living. And our intent is to buy another house in South Lansing, perhaps in the Scott Woods neighborhood, or maybe in another neighborhood, but somewhere in the kind of South Lansing region, and to use the rent on the Holt parsonage to pay off the mortgage on this. It'll really be a third parsonage that we'll own. Or wait, am I counting right? 3, yeah.
4.
4, no, there'll be 4 parsonages. And then over the long term, what that does give us is, in the same way that the Potterville parsonage gives us income every month, the Holt parsonage, once it pays off, the South Lansing parsonage, would just be income that we would have to use for whatever we decided to do. We're running off of a model here that is kind of starting to take shape in broader church circles, of a 3-legged stool approach to finances of a church, or income. One leg is the giving leg, which is mostly what most churches do. And that's the only leg that they tend to stand on. But there's 2 other legs that churches are starting to add to that. And one is a nonprofit leg, and a third is a for-profit leg. So I think what you're going to see us starting to do somewhere in the not too distant future is to create a separate 501c3 that is not a religious based nonprofit, but is just call it our do good nonprofit that can write for grants. For example, the kitchen and the Asbury, and it used to be in Potterville. We let the license go in Potterville, but the Asbury kitchen is licensed. We have a baker that's using it right now to start her own small business, and to turn something like that into an incubator, like a business incubator. And there's a lot of granting opportunities for that would allow us to upgrade the space through grants, small business grants, and so on. So the nonprofit, and then the for-profit leg. Now, I was just using the kitchen as an example. Like what we do at the Potterville Food Pantry is another aspect of us doing nonprofit and potentially writing for grants if we have that. And then the for-profit leg would be something like, well, we own these properties and they are creating income for us. So we are trying to get out of everything to figure out where Mikkel would perhaps move next. But we needed to get past everything else here.
So the Holt property would start to turn a profit in what, 30 years? When the other mortgage is paid off?
Something like that. It's not 30 years, but
It'd be a long-term, it's a long-term plan is what,
Yeah.
what you're, is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, yeah.
Yeah.
And the nonprofit piece would be like a CDC, yeah, Community Development Corporation.
Yeah. Yeah, Jason just put in the chat that a 501c3 would allow him to take advantage of matching funds from his company, Jackson National.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
great to hear.
So then just for clarity's sake, the new parsonage in the South Lansing area would have a separate mortgage from what we're discussing tonight.
That's correct.
Yep.
We'll be coming back to have this conversation again sometime in the next year. It's likely, Mark, as well, that the parsonage in Holt will kick off a lot more income than what paying for a mortgage in South Lansing. So it could pay it off. Like, I would anticipate that this house will rent for between $2,000 and $3,000 a month. And buying a house in South Lansing is probably between $700,000 and $100,000 a month mortgage payment. 700 and 1,000.
So are
Hopefully
we,
that answers the
we had a
question.
few questions.
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure we are talking about financing all of these remodeling costs, both for the parsonage and for the, okay. And do we have any opportunities to pursue like grants or other funding sources to help us? Are there any available?
Well, the main grants sources, or the most obvious ones, would be from the district and the conference. And we already have received grants from both of those. We've been given or offered $150,000 each over the next 3 years, so a total of $300,000. They're not, they come at a little different rate. The district grant comes in the form of $70,000 the first year, $50,000 the second, and $30,000 the third. So it's a step down grant. And the conference grant comes at 50, 50, 50. So the first year will be 120, and then 100, and then 80. And those are going to be for really, in a lot of ways, I mean, there's more than this, but they're covering salary and expenses, operating expenses for the launch itself, not the building. Now we're in the process right now of doing a commitment drive with folks from Asbury to ask what is their commitment, both in participation, volunteering, and financial. And we're starting to get those commitments back in. And last I looked, there's about $52,000 a year that's been committed by the people who've submitted those commitment sheets so far. So that's the other side of the income will be who's sticking around from Asbury and what they're continuing to give. And right now we have 52,000 commitment.
Okay. Because we
I anticipate there'll be more. There's not very many people who've submitted those yet.
Okay. So, because the operating costs are more. I mean, we have 3 pastors, we have more staff. So I know in all of this, we're talking about the mortgage, and I get that, but there is another part of our budget, the money that needs to be coming from somewhere to cover other expenses that Sycamore Creek is responsible for.
Yeah.
So do we know what that plan is?
Well, I mean, the expenses are already covered for the other 2 campuses right now, from the giving from those 2 campuses. And so if you take 52,000 and you add it to the 120, you've got 172,000 the first year for a Eastwood budget, and then it goes down. I'm trying to remember all the numbers in my head right
Yeah,
now, but it goes down a
I
little
don't
bit each
remember
year.
them either, but it
But
goes down.
hopefully Eastwood is going up as well as far as attendance and commitment to giving. I should add that there are benchmarks that the district and the conference expect us to hit to continue those grants. So we haven't been given like just $150,000 check. So to get the next round of it, there are certain benchmarks that we have to meet.
Okay. So our mortgage is going up to $4,800 a month from 2,000. So how is, I mean, we've been covering the 2,000 obviously. So how are we going to cover the additional 28?
Chuck, you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, Shelley, initially, we're gonna have to dip into our savings. Initially, you know, we got the building fund, we have,
Mhm.
you know, other savings, but, you know, the current building fund, you know, but the idea is there is roughly about 600,000 in investments and savings between the endowment and others, where I would hope every day would be like today, and the Dow would go up 1,000, and our interest income would cover that mortgage. Now I realize that's a little bit of an offshoot, but I mean we do expect the market will recover during this time period, which is, you know, it's a long-term investment, right? I mean, we're
Yeah.
not going to recoup it all in a year.
No,
But once the market recovers and those funds start generating significant interest, it should more than offset the 2,800. You know, plus again, you know, continued commitments, the stewardship drive, everything else, continued commitments to the building. Those monies obviously can be used for that additional 2,800 also.
so is there an expectation that people will increase their giving to help cover this?
Well, as you know, we felt we had capital campaign fatigue a little bit, so we switched over to the stewardship campaign, where we're asking people to you know, tithe and our building and our, you know, Dr. Mir, et cetera. We'll continue that every year. We'll continue that next year and that. And yeah, we'll bring up the debt. You know, so people are aware, you know, we've always been fairly transparent. We've also been debt adverse. So having this type of debt is new for us.
Yes.
You know, you and I have been through the ups and downs for a lot of years, but you know, I think the opportunity outweighs the risk. And again, MALF doesn't, Michigan Area Loan Fund just doesn't willy-nilly hand things out. I mean, we spent an hour and a half, was it, Tom and Thomas, with Karen? You know, she asked a lot of good questions, you know, and you know, wanted to see everything before they were even comfortable loaning us that, right? But they also, almost all of our investments are with United Methodist Foundation, right? So she has access to that too. So she sees what our assets are.
Right.
But yeah, making a long story, talking too much, but we fully expect the interest to regain and more than offset that increase. But initially, yeah, there'll be a little bit of a dip.
Okay. Thank you.
No, it's a good question.
Other questions that folks had? There may be more questions that come up as you continue to think about this and sleep on it and wake up tomorrow. One thing that's kind of there's a shift here that's happening for me is that I'm going, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've gone from being the pastor of one church to the pastor of 3 churches. And so the number of assets that you get have grown. So you almost have to think of this as 3 churches. When you start talking about this, at the end of the day, we're going to have 3 buildings, 3 church buildings and 4 parsonages. And that's just a different level of asset management than running one church. And it requires different kind of way of thinking and decision making. We'll be presenting to you on November 28th is when we're going to come together for a church conference. It'll be at our South Lansing campus at 6:30. It'll be in person. The district superintendent will be there to preside over it. We will have a really specific motion that says this is the exact amount that we are wanting to borrow from the Missionary Loan Fund. We're kind of giving you broad strokes right now because really we didn't even get the bids until today, or the one bid, and we're trying to get more than one bid. So we should have more than one bid by November 28th, but we at least know that one person can do it for the amount that they gave us today. So we will get that motion out to you as soon as we have it. That will include Missionary Loan Fund wanted again for collateral the building, both the Asbury building and the South Lansing building as part of that. So that'll be part of the motion. And then the church conference itself is probably pretty short. Like we've scheduled it for 6:30. I don't anticipate it being super long. Short of people having lots of questions that they didn't get addressed or some weird thing happening. So let me just run through kind of what's coming up here for the church as a whole. Tomorrow and Saturday is a bunch of men, including me and Mark, going out in the woods at Wesley Woods. Then, of course, like I said, the November 28th church conference. This is kind of the first time we put out what's happening at Christmas. We're working on a Christmas karaoke, on then doing something at Sanctuary Spirits. We're going to carol at Potterville, and then we're going to go back to Buddy's on Monday. Carol and Scott Woods on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're going to do a Christmas service at Sweet Encounters downtown in the Ide building. Christmas and bakery. Christmas Eve, we're going to do Christmas at Rock the Block. So we'll do our Christmas service in Tiffany's studio, followed by Dancing with the Nordays. And then candlelight services at both campuses at South Lansing, 3, 5, and 9. The 9 will be outside on the patio. At Potterville, 3, 7, and 9. And the 9 will be outside in the parking lot. And then December 25th falls on a Sunday. So we are going to do a pre-recorded service that you can use as a family or with your friends at any time you want on that day, but we will not meet in person on Sunday 25th. And then kind of our comeback event from all that will encourage people to come back and join us for tubing on January 8th at Birchfield. We did move the Eastwood launch team training to March 10th and 11th. It was in February, early February, but there was a conflict with my coach who's going to come and do that with us. Also, I was realizing like I needed a little more time to build a team and ask some people to join us. So mark your calendars for that. That is going to be a church-wide thing, even whether you're on the Eastwood launch team or not. We're going to invite everyone because it's going to be good, just basic skill training for growing your church.
We also have a birthday party.
Oh yeah, I didn't put that on there. Yeah, last Sunday was our 22nd birthday as a church. We had a big plan for the 20th. And that fell through because of COVID, and then we were going to celebrate 21st, and that fell through. So we're finally getting around to 22, and that's this Sunday at Buddy's at 7 o'clock. So it's going to be pretty low key, free appetizers. You can order anything else you want at that point. Bring some games, and we'll play some music and just enjoy each other there. So at the end of each meeting we lead, we like to just take a minute to evaluate it. So want to ask you, you can say out loud or you can type in the chat. What's one thing that went well tonight?
I really appreciate how prepared everyone was. It's not a surprise to me, having seen it before, but Chuck and Thomas and Tom and Mikkel and Matthew and Mark, all the time that you've put into this, I know that when you explain it, it's just a drop in the bucket when it comes to all the hours that you've put in. And I'm sure Jason is in there too, even though his camera is off, and so many others. And so I just appreciate the preparedness that you came to the meeting with, and sharing that information with those of us who haven't been involved this time. So thank you.
Mhm. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that and say, like you kind of come to this meeting expecting that Tom, Mark, and I know what we're doing a little bit because we're employed full-time by the church. But like the folks who shared the bulk of the information today are volunteers. And they're like putting hours of work into this. And so that's like, it's really amazing. It's encouraging as someone new to the team to see how dedicated folks are to making this happen. And so good job, team.
Yeah, wonderful.
You can keep celebrating, but when we do this again sometime in the future, we'll have more digital town halls. What's something that we could improve or was missing or confusing tonight? Besides snacks.
Yeah.
I kind of, having done a lot of other digital meetings, it probably would have been nice to have maybe some sort of summary handout from you guys via email that I could look at while, like we're going over stuff, so that at least, because like a lot of large numbers being thrown around can be easily confused, I guess is my point. So having some sort of summary of what to expect, I don't know if ahead of time or like right before the meeting would work, so that stuff would be discussed in here, but just something to go along with the meeting, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Miranda, we did send out an email. Did you not get that? That had all of the summary
Oops.
of it?
Okay, maybe I didn't, I don't know.
Okay, I'll send it to you so you have it.
Thank you.
Maybe next time we can share a link to like whatever document at the beginning of the meeting so that people have it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
One thing I thought of is making sure that there's someone. I was the person who probably had the most information in my group, and having been being kind of new, I wasn't sure if I could answer all the questions. So I don't know. That was just maybe I was the only one who experienced that in my group. Probably I was supposed to know more.
The person who should know more than they do, because you're the pastor. But you're new.
Yeah, I was probably the person in my group who was supposed to know the things, and I kind of did. I kind of was able to find the information, but
No, you did great,
I also
Michelle.
had questions.
Anything else that we could improve on?
This is a positive. I did appreciate the information you sent out. I mean, it was helpful to be able to read through it and be able to, come with some specific questions and understanding. So
Thanks. Miranda, I just sent you those letters and the link to the renderings as well.
Thanks.
I think you're right. It would have been Mikkel would have been good to give a link just in the chat. Like, if you haven't seen this, here it is.
Mhm.
All right, well, let's close with a prayer and we'll call it a good night. Thank you, God, for the amazing amount of work and volunteer hours that people like Thomas and Mark and Matthew and Chuck and everybody else here on this call do in all kinds of areas of our church to accomplish the mission of Jesus in this Lansing region. We pray for guidance, we pray for wisdom, we pray for courage. We pray that if there's something that you don't want us to do, that you'd make that clear and evident, and give us the courage to accept that. Bless and establish the work of our hands, that we would follow you faithfully in your mission. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.